Greetings, sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. So, this is Body Culinary, and just coming to check in. Been up for quite a while. I'm an early riser, but just getting into things, moving around in my own space. So, I usually come on between 4:30 and 6:30. Usually between 4 and 6:30. So usually 4. But there are times where I just go into making tea and cleaning and beautifying my space and burning some incense, some frankincense and myrrh, and just spending good quality, quiet time with myself. And by the way, today's tea of the day is fennel. So not the powder, I'm grinding it fresh. So no sweetness. So check out fennel tea. So setting the tone for the day. I'm just going to embark on the practice of relaxation, and an entrance point or an access point to relaxation being deep breathing, deep inhaling and exhaling, listening for it to be rhythmic and synchronized. Breathing is going on all the time. We're just being intentional in an effort to match up and synchronize and bring into a oneness our mind, our mental activity, our breath that animates the body temple, our awareness, and our intention for the day. So it's a wonderful way to get clear and to hone your listening and to even notice if your access point or your listening is not really tuned all the way in for you to hear. If your mind has started to become really busy before the day even starts with your cell phone or with demands or children. Again, the breath can really be a wonderful access point when we use it very intentionally. And so the other thing this morning before we go into the breath is the access point. And I wanted to just touch on why relaxation is so important to, how it coincides with radical self-acceptance. Many of us are waiting, may not realize. If this does not refer to you, by all means, leave it right here. Just one woman's perspective and observation. Many of us are waiting for something to begin and to waiting quite often, may not realize it habitually, for validation from the inside. So if you wait for validation of a compliment, or if you're waiting for validation, sometimes acknowledgement, you may even get insults, particularly in this arena with this so anonymity or anonymous folks with everyone has an opinion. Millions of people have an opinion on the internet. Then you can be deeply affected by what other people say. And I would not say by any means I'm very human and I'm not immune. However, I have found that a healthy curiosity has saved me. And it helps me to reframe my narrative, which is really important to being triggered. I like to say that, or I observe that we're in we're in a climate of constant triggeration. There's so many things between the screen and people and the climate maybe feeling very volatile. It's easy to be triggered by any and everything, our own trauma, other people's trauma, things that we see happening on the screen. And this stuff affects our ability to focus, not only to focus, but to relax and to be calm. We got enough stuff going on. Yet this is the climate that we're in. So the breath can really give us access to calm, to peace, to a relaxed focus, and the ability to help us kind of like stay guided and give us access to our aspirations, our goals, what we want to experience, and how we want to feel. We're being affected by everything outside, so we can actually affect ourselves. And this is something that many of us may perhaps need to cultivate, right? And how can we cultivate it without awareness? And the access point to awareness being the breath to help us stay calm and intentional about what we say is important to us. Because if we don't, and you let me know your respective feedback, are you able, if you're triggered all the time, even if it seems righteously so, or if we seem righteously justified, do you notice it can often be at the expense of your focus? And even being triggered can be, it's not bad or wrong per se, but can be, what it can cost you is your focus. And that can be really challenging when so many things are just really coming at your psyche and your attention, and it's in your ears and you can't turn it off because you share the planet with folks that are trying to sell things to us, and other traumatized individuals and folks with their own unique ways of being and doing. So I don't know about you, but as a human, I notice that it's very easy to lose focus, and this affects the way that we feel. And a lot of these feelings are impacted into our psyche and our subconscious. A lot of this is driving our behavior and how we feel, and it's affecting our experience of life. So a lot of the validation that we're seeking, you may say these things, that sounds great, but how can you give yourself access to it if you don't have any awareness? So we come right back again to the breath and the importance of being calm and intentional, the way that we feel, But if we're anxious and we're really triggered, we could lose access. We can really lose access to our focus because defense mode kicks in, survival mode kicks in, protecting ourselves kicks in, and that's often not from a space of calm and centeredness. We can even be blinded, even though we may be right or righteously so. So how can we be intentional? And even when we're triggered or even when we're angered, how can we transmute or take that energy and use it in a focused way? It's a puzzle. So I invite you to contemplate that on your own. You can add your own contemplation. You're welcome to find a space or a position that's comfortable for you. If you have greetings. If you have issues with your knees or your lower back, you may want to find a chair or a seat where you can keep your spine nice and upright, and where your pelvis is not sinking so that you're slumping. So you can be nice and awake and alert, relaxed yet awake, by keeping your shoulders around, down and back. You're welcome to take your belly button and slightly pull your belly button into your spine so that you're giving support to your lower back. Noticing if you have a good amount of space between your shoulder and also your ears. Sometimes you may not realize they were like this. You may even take and shrug your shoulders up and then relax them down, around, down, and back, so you can feel and notice the difference. Because with the breath and the other little cues that we can give ourselves with the intention of generating calm, relaxed awareness. It is a muscle. Because we're not really encouraged to relax. If anything, I've observed that we're encouraged to go to the opposite extreme, super relaxation, to the point where we're numbing out quite often with vices that are compromising our organs and our vitality, and it can become physiologically addicting. So I think it perhaps can be more beneficial to cultivate. We can actually what do you have to lose with some of your stress? To intentionally cultivate a craving for quiet. Doesn't mean we need to run off to a cave, a meditation cave. That could be nice. I've done that before. However, even in ashrams, the teachers say that those who get the most grace, and you're welcome to reframe the narrative, are the householders or the people that live out in the world, that have duties, that have children, that raise children, that have the job of keeping life going, right? And so folks that are recluses, they're very in what do you call them? Cities or enlightened beings, folks that can go off to a cave. That's not the majority of society. I don't know that I would want to live in a cave. Those folks have their purposes, but the majority of us human beings are living out here in the world. And for us to be able to function and communicate, interact, without acting and reacting out of triggers, makes us much more productive and peaceful human beings, right? And definitely able to not inflict damage on each other and damage on children and people that may move and live differently than we do. So all of that we can have access to from the breath. And as well as interacting with other people, your own interactions with yourself in quiet, you can start to hear more. Because I can definitely, the more you do, this is such a simple practice, right? No gurus, no religion, just quiet and listening to your breath. Your awareness of what's going on, your internal dialogue, you just start to become aware. And it may surprise you the more you do this simple practice. It may surprise you how much the internal dialogue is self-sabotaging, And so I invite folks to have a healthy amount of curiosity about how your own psyche works. When I'm sending something, okay, oh, that's lovely, something that stayed there for a few days. I wasn't sure, so I got it back. So being a looker, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. That's appreciated. I haven't used it before, so it's my first time putting it on. So, internationally, there's so many people, unfortunately, scamming these days. So I'm very cautious, but that is appreciated. So let's get to some breathing. Let's get to our super simple practice of breathing. And I am one, unashamedly, make an effort to make a positive use of the internet and leverage access to any tools that I have for learning, for relaxation, for cultivating very intentionally a circle of influence, all without minus the cults. And the other stuff, because additionally, it's very important to cultivate discernment in the times we're living in, because you could just feel it's very almost palpable. I think, and again, not to demonize anything, I think so many human beings, we're just looking for some relief. We're looking for relief, and in being so desperate for relief, we can become blinded and lose our discernment. When we really just want some relaxation, we really just want some validation, we really want to experience some joy and some health. So something as simple as the breath is something that we have access to. You're empowered when you have things that you have access to, that you can do on your own. So you may have your teachers, your coaches, your mentors. Hopefully you're looking for folks that don't do the work for you, but that assist you and that are catalysts to you motivating and getting into action yourself around things that you say are important to you. So that being said, let's get into the breath. So in a comfortable position, we're breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. There are different techniques of intentional breathing. This is one of my favorite practices that I've done in a certain style of yoga, and from all different types of practices I've explored over many years. I love to take what is the most practical, right? And that's where I build my personal quote unquote practice, which is just simple practice in terms of intentionally creating awareness for the purpose of relaxation. So find a comfortable position where your spine can be upright. Pull the belly button into the spine. I'm inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And you're listening to see, quite often you could be inhaling very, very shallow. And exhaling, I think, can sometimes be easier because it's the relief part. Sometimes it can take a little something, and these are tools to develop your awareness, to notice if you're able to expand and slow down your inhale and be intentional and relaxed in taking in air, which is giving you oxygen to your brain. It's interesting how these little subtle things can really help you to cultivate an awareness. So that being said, So this is perhaps a good time to write a few sentences, perhaps in your journal or whatever comes up for you. There could be a couple of words or a few sentences. It's also a good time, I have found, for contemplation. Contemplation is asking a question, I would say, of your own divine, innate intelligence that you were born with, I was born with, every human being is born with an onboard intelligence system, right? There's a communication that is beyond words. It's a knowing. It's a form of intelligence. So, for example, contemplation could be, um, is there anything else that I need to do? Is there anything that I can release? It could be, how am I feeling right now? If you have an issue going on with your body temple, is there anything that I could do for it? Or you could intentionally breathe into your body temple. These things may seem like overly simplistic or hoo-hoo ha-ha, but the energy, how you feel about everything, your attention is everything. It's grossly underestimated. You can be so quick to purchase heart rate monitors and more glow-in-the-dark, armbands and more equipment, and we're not really encouraged to trust the technology that is within our own body temples. There's something, we are here, we are alive, right? We're having these experiences, and I don't know about the next experience. I don't know what the next phase of the next experience is going to be like. I don't know that anybody really knows. And even if they know, that's their experience. I do know I'm experiencing, we can call it a holographic universe. We can put bendies on our head. We can, go with the ankhs and all the other stuff, and that's great, and it has its place. But what about trusting your own experience? So, greetings. I am such a lover of the early day for so many reasons. My grandma Lou, I talk about all the time, was an early riser, and she got up when she was dark, when it was dark outside. And I would be sleepy, but sometimes I would hear her moving around. And so, with the eyes of a young child, my grandma Lou, who's a very simple woman, I put her up there with the Dalai Lama. Not a perfect human being, but she stands in such stark contrast to me because, one, she didn't give me negative deposits. And over the years, I've always contemplated what is so different about her. She didn't wear a bunch of makeup. Some people would say that she wasn't rich, but she worked to buy a little home for herself. But she said any of her family could come and rest their head. I didn't see her with a bunch of makeup on. I didn't see, she rocked her own cornrows, very dark chocolate woman. She just had 2 little silver bangles on. That's it. However, I did not notice the energy. I didn't notice her angry all the time. She wasn't angry. And I was like, how come she's not angry and everybody else is so mad? Now, I'm sure living to almost 100, she had seen and experienced some things as a very dark chocolate woman. And I watched her work like a little ant, how she had the attitude, I would say, of a hummingbird. And so just her presence, oh my gosh, and making coconut bread. I know I said it a million times, but sitting in her kitchen with coconut bread, she left me with such simple, sweet memories. And she didn't give me a whole bunch of negative frames of reference. She just simple. So to me, she was very present, and she was very pleasant. And so actually, I don't know that she would ever know the impact that she had on me just as a living, walking, breathing example. So I've always had a curiosity, like, how did she get that way? Because I don't feel a sense of envy, but I have a curiosity, like her state, she didn't, and maybe perhaps some things she didn't share with me, but I know for a fact she left me with a presence. And I think it's so important if you have living, breathing examples of that in your life. Now, maybe perhaps with grandparents, by the time they get to a certain age, maybe they're seasoned and mellowed out, or more in touch with their mortality and what counts and what's important and what's not important. By a certain age, maybe you're not chasing tail anymore. I don't know. But I do know this. She didn't leave me with the negative deposits. She was present. I didn't see her overly fixated on food. I didn't see her medicating and numbing out. And when I come across other people, she was consistent. So she seemed to have had the same impact on other people. So she wasn't vegan, she wasn't vegetarian, yet somehow she's my inspiration to eat healthy. Because one of the biggest things Grandma Lou said was eat your own food. And if somebody was complaining about what couldn't get done or what you couldn't do, again, I call if there's a net, I don't know if folks know what the net or the neturu or orishas or symbols or saints or whatever you want to call them. But when I think about my grandmother, if there was a symbol or creature or creatures to represent my grandma, it would be an ant. I'm a professional ant watcher. And a hummingbird. So I've seen hummingbirds around, like particularly a little blue hummingbird that comes around certain bushes. So it's one thing to look into the ancient scriptures and into the Bible and the Medu Nectar and all these things to look and to see them. But when you have a living representation walking around in the flesh that you have access to compare and contrast. And we may perhaps even be taking for granted those types of people that in our lives. My dad is that person for me. He's such a beautiful king. Wow. I hope you are sharing the story of your dad with other people, because not everyone has those kinds of figures in their life. And I know for me, as a mom and as a parent, and when I've met other people, and I'm like, wow, you can quite often hear, many of us as human beings, you can hear when there's trauma that is connected with our parents, right? Or when there have been times like, wow, whatever happened with this person with their parents? You can hear like the anger or the venom, because those are our first teachers. And parents are human beings too, and they have issues that don't have anything to do with this. A lot of times they won't even express all the things they have been through, especially if they're from an older generation. However, as children, that's not our responsibility, and we are not mature enough to process those things. So from a child's eye, quite often we come with later feelings of abandonment and neglect because the trauma or the survival mode of our parents left them not present. So when I have come across people who have been very important people in my life, I'm like, wow, let me share my Grandma Lou, let me share my godparents with them, because they were awesome. And I was very fortunate. I was very, very fortunate, and I am very fortunate to have had folks that are living in the flesh and that set a bar for behavior. So to share those stories, then, it's one thing, again, to look to Bible verses and the Manu Decha and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita and the Rig Veda. But what about the people that are here walking in the flesh? So if we can share those we learn as human beings through stories. And I'm always talking about Grandma Lou's coconut bread, and to me it brings a smile to my face. When I share that story with my son, it brings a smile. These things are deposits in our subconscious, and I think it's very important that, because we're getting messages now, people are calling them downloads, but we're getting information we have to process all the time. And now we do know most of our behaviors are fueled or operating out of our subconscious. So it really takes something to be really intentional. I post in my videos from time to time. He just had his 94th birthday. So I would really, I should only hope, I know I would like to be jumping double Dutch. Should I have grandchildren or my community grandchildren? Because whether we have children that come through us or not, we're community mamas and papas and aunties. And I think that's very, very important. I don't hear a lot today with all the fluidity and all the folk, and sex, that's a natural part of life. So it's interesting, from all of the camps, I hear a lot of us mature adults projecting our experiences onto small children. And again, if I look at my grandma, she didn't give me any deposits like that. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't projecting her issues. She wasn't projecting her problems, her stuckness. She didn't give me any negative deposits. She didn't project her issues or her views or any of that. Now that I think of it, no politics. I didn't hear anything. As a matter of fact, as a little girl once, when she was humming and listening to some music that sounded a little bit churchy, because Caribbeans, either it's soca or sometimes we play some very kind of Catholic kind of stuff. This Caribbean radio is something different. So I remember I said, Grandma, because my southern side, Afro-Southern side of the family, go to church, Pentecostal, Baptist, all of that. And I said, Grandma, you're not going to go to church? And she just chuckled and said, I'm not going here to get that man my money. So she also had so much common sense. I often wondered, she was just very light. She was very light. So she gives me something to look forward to when I'm 100. I would like to be jumping double Dutch and doing some stretches with my community, children, aunties, nieces, nephews. That's my intention. So that is also a good incentive to breathe so that you have some awareness so that you can keep your brain healthy. Because my two great grandmas, they had their sense and their wits about them in their 90s. And so, as I look around at populations now where medication is so second nature now, the culture, the climate is one that is common nature. I just get medication, and I'm not demonizing that, but I have often contemplated that medication is taking the place of what would be people, actual human beings who you would have a safe space to express and get safe feedback, not to be manipulated by an authority figure or someone that's misusing their position of eldership or fault. Where you're looking for something, quite often we see today that children and young people are exploited for adults' own trauma or their own appetites. We're using other people's bodies as pacifiers or a place to dump our emotions and secretions. It's unfortunate. So when I just look at my grandma's another experience, it's incentive to stay healthy and to keep your brain healthy and to look forward to playing. I don't think we realize how much we get jaded, which is an energy and mentality, and not think that our bodies get jaded and sedentary and stagnant. And this is all connected with our consumption patterns. So I know I'm a chef and I love healthy eating and all that stuff. And I say this often, that we can focus so much on the recipes that we can be using the food, even if it's healthy food, quite often as a crux, as a substitute, like we have meat substitutes, as a substitute and a pacifier for intimate relations and for feeling and for human contact. I'd rather have an African dance class or go hiking, even if it's challenging, or jump rope than eat all the time. And so it's become a substitute for human interaction, if that makes sense. So I often said, if I was to come over right now to your house with my jump rope and some mats, so we were able to play and food and stuff, it would be, healthy eating would be a no-brainer. So many folks are not inspired because sometimes they're just doing things by themselves or alone. Literally sitting at the elders' feet and listen to their stories. I'm telling, it's a simple story. You would think I spent all this time with Grandma Lou. It wasn't every day, all the time. I did have, on the southern side of my family, I still remember grandmothers living in the house. I remember when there was not really babysitters like that because there were grandmothers in the home. That's just it. So I don't remember any talk of people going to homes. That was I remember when it became a concept. I knew grandmothers, they were just there in the home. So things that were cultural and Sunday dinner. I remember when Sunday dinner started to exit as those matriarchs, as they expired, then people didn't want to keep I don't want to go to the family barbecue, that gathering, 4th of July, because grandma's not here anymore. People arguing over who's going to make the potato salad. Well, grandma used to do that. A lot of traditions, women in many ways are keepers of certain parts of our culture. And we're putting values just naturally in our interaction into our children, from the simple thing of that grating that coconut and coconut bread. And my grandma, I talk all the time, the plastic lunch tray was saving the pennies and putting them in the old school passbook savings account. She was actually injecting values. I don't think she even knew that. But what grandma was doing is what I was doing. So what we're doing is what children are mimicking. It's what children are mimicking. So I haven't reached eldership yet, but I am very well aware that I'm a community mama and a community auntie. I'm a human being with very real feelings. You see me on this channel, and I like to be peaceful and all that, but don't get it twisted. I'm a peaceful plant eater, but don't get it twisted in these times. I think it is about us having discernment and balance and acknowledging all those different sides of ourselves and giving ourselves a break and allowing ourselves to be human. I love distinctions. I absolutely love distinctions. I say make the difference. There's a distinction between judgment. I'm all for judgment in the sense of common sense, which I think is distinguished from judgment in the sense of condemning ourselves and condemning others, because people condemn themselves with their own behavior. There's a lot that we don't even really have to do. So I'm all for creating some kind of space, creating some space from all of that stuff that is literally compacted in all of our brains and our subconscious. And breath is one of our biggest tools. Tea is a huge tool. The garden is a huge tool. However, sometimes we're so busy that we don't even have access because we are moving too fast to hear. I can tell you from the time I got up, which is usually without an alarm clock at 4, my listening, my ability to hear is totally different. Even now, it's like I just can't hear because it's too noise. I mean, there's the roosters and other stuff, but there's so much human noise and messages that I literally can't hear the same. So it really takes something to cultivate a listening. And the beautiful thing, this is practical. You don't need a religion. You don't need a guru. This morning in particular, oh my gosh, just the clarity I had about certain things. And not meaning to sound morbid at all, but I was just contemplating. Sometimes I contemplate death, right? Because, I talk a lot about, or share a lot about, and you're welcome to research, the 6 basic human fears. And sometimes I just marvel at how much we don't go after things. Like, I just really sat with that. And I sat and I thought of different members of my family, some who I feel like are very ill or sick, or particularly for me, one thing that I explore a lot is in working with folks is obesity and the comorbidities that go with it. As someone that works as a nutrition consultant, a chef, and also as a fitness coach for many years, culturally, I've always been fascinated from a child of how we go from slim and young and fine to carrying so much adipose tissue, right? That's not who we are. It's not limited to the body. So I want to make the distinction of adipose tissue, right? That unhealthy excess fatty tissue. And I often wonder, like, what is that? So from a child, I was always observing the patterns. Excuse me, take a sip of tea before it gets cold. So in observing those patterns, even before I could articulate it, I was like, wow, I could sense and I could see patterns of sadness before I could articulate it. Depression, anger, not having outlets to express, the pressure of duties and family life and fear, all of these things. I notice that humans, we will just medicate. Even years as a personal trainer, I would just watch, even when folks would have so much success, that I would know. Sometimes I could just see that the minute they step out the door and the phone rings and the stress of the children, like there's so much pressure and stress that the medication, the desire to reach for something to self-medicate is almost like automatic. So I have been observing it even within myself. I have plenty of healthy habits. I'm fortunate. And one of the reasons, not because I'm the most disciplined person, I would share this gem, because I've seen so much suffering, that has given me a certain degree of clarity to find other options and other things that I can do rather than medicate myself with food or alcohol or drugs. That's just one woman's experience. I observed a lot of drug use from people who I love, funny people, many gifts about them, but I was always wondering. I just was fascinated. And I've said before, I watched documentaries on junkies. I wanted to understand the why of the self-sabotaging behavior. And so in the wee hours and in the quiet, when you ask these questions, I realized like, wow, that there is so much fear and how there's sadness. We can call ourselves lazy, but it's really sad laziness, or a manifestation, a symptom may be laziness when it's really a sadness, or in not just doing little things to take on the things. If it's you want to be a comedian, if you want to sew, the impact of not doing what you're called to do, or something you want to experience, if you don't do it, it rides your subconscious. And there's so much fear around failure. What if I don't get it right? What if I'm judged? What if I'm not good enough? I'm not immune to this. It's just a practice and an observation that for some reason as a child, my eyes have been open to. So that's led me down a rabbit hole of studies and education and so on for years. But in the quiet moments when you ask, I swear to you, if you just ask yourself questions, right? And so one of the practices, I don't know if you can call it meditation, but of active meditation, and you can try it if you like, is before, and this is one of the practices we observe in the cocoon. And before you get up in the morning, right? Before you, let's say you're awake and it's really early. Before you get up, while you're just laying there, right? Your eyes can be closed or open right there at that very point. If you ask yourself questions, and particularly when the world is quiet, there is so much information. This is interesting because I know in Indian scriptures and yoga practices, they talk a lot about the sannyasis, or the renunciates, or the people that go and do tapas or different really stringent spiritual practices, right? Because they're exploring their mind and their subconscious. And then they come back and they write all these scriptures and they give it to humanity. In the wee hours, I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't call myself the Dalai Lama. I wouldn't call my grandma the Dalai Lama. But I'm telling you, at the time when the mind is quiet, in the wee hours, if you just ask questions about your existence, and it doesn't have to be like super deep, it's actually really practical. Ask yourself your own divine, onboard, innate intelligence questions. Like, is this something I really want to start? Why am I scared? Anything that maybe perhaps you're avoiding or not taking on. This could be from vices to things you want to follow through on, because things that you don't follow through on, there's even a sadness around you not pursuing it, if that makes sense. It's a wonderful time because you haven't kicked into the distraction mode. You haven't kicked in. A lot of the distractions and people chase and tail. We spend a good portion of our life chase and tail. But even chase and tail or relationships are not a substitute for things that we are to fulfill and experience in our own life. So why are we avoiding them? And in the quiet moments, you can hear just the fears that are kind of almost like paralyzing us. There are literal fears on death. We don't know what that's going to be like, but we know we expire. Old age, poverty, criticism, illness. There are 6 basic fears. So if you think of that, really, we can be that part of our psyche, that reptilian part of our brain, or some people call it the ego, is not logical at all. So, for example, this morning, as I was just contemplating death and the fears that we have around death, I was thinking like, you hear these terms all the time right now, the holographic universe. And I speak all the time about our divine, innate, onboard intelligence. But if you really think about it, this is just going to transition to something else. We don't know what it is. And it's going to be a continuation, but we don't know what form. So wouldn't it make sense if we have that consciousness or something is writing us about our integrity? Wouldn't it make sense to have whatever experiences you want to have now? If we don't, not being integrity manifests into all kinds of behaviors. So we don't even begin. We don't even start. We don't even start. We're waiting for validation. Many of us on social media, when we put our pictures up and not, shaming anybody, but we're looking for a validation. But even the validation from social media, is it really sustainable? Is that really a substitute for validating yourself? And there's nothing wrong with it. We're looking for validation. But I invite you to, there's like worlds, like these cities and sannyasis that would go into these caves and they would meditate. They came back with like books and books and books of literature written in all types of poetic prose. But do you realize there's worlds of intelligence and information in your own brain? And in school, we're not encouraged to trust it. And no, if that's just my observation, you can leave it right here. In houses of worship, we're not taught to trust it. We're taught to trust everything out of it. It's like, to me, sometimes I think of it, it's like a Jedi mind trick, because some folks have a vested interest for profit. Well, we're not really taught to trust our own intelligence. So in place of trust, we're given a lot of fear in order to control us, and a lot of basic truths are manipulated. Ain't that a pip? So the breath, I found, can give us access to relaxation. Simple. The simple can be gourmet. Simple can be profound. Sometimes quite often less can be more, when you can just sit with the less, or the things that really, really count. And relaxation is so important. Relaxation without the need to medicate. We are constantly being encouraged. Like you can't get access to relaxation or your divine intelligence without taking a substance. Isn't that something? So I just question when somebody's sharing some toxic treats that could off my internal organs, or everybody's trying to convince me that I need this and I need this and I need a cup of this. I need all of this stuff to access my divine innate intelligence. I don't know. Somehow that don't feel right to me. My divine onboard intelligence tells me I don't think so. It's like always intuitively from watching Grandma Lou, I always felt like health shouldn't have to be so like expensive. Because they talk about Jesus feeding people with a loaf and a couple pieces of fish. I watched my grandma do that with some rolls of pennies and build a house. Little house, sweet, clean little island house for everybody to come and rest their head. I watched her in the flesh. So we hear all these anecdotes and these stories. So somehow having that living example, I don't know. I really feel like as I sit in the early morning, it's a communication from your own onboard innate intelligence. So you let me know what y'all think, right? So I don't know. We talking about Jesus, Haru, the phoenix is you, but somehow it doesn't land. How come it doesn't land? How come it doesn't stick? How come it's not playing out in our choices for relationships and our consumption pattern? Don't y'all ever consider what's missing? Where's the disconnect? So I'm wary of the Jedi mind tricks. And it is really something to cultivate relaxation and a trust of yourself. Before you trust me or anybody else, trust yourself. Trust yourself. How are you going to develop that trust in the most practical sense? Is to hear your own divine onboard innate intelligence and to cultivate a craving to change. It might even sometimes manifest as people may think it's kooky, but talking to yourself or communicating, that might sound like talking, but communicating with yourself during the course of the day. What you got to lose? It's a little experiment. But you may notice when you do that, you can start to discern between communications, messages that are driving your behaviors, and checking in with yourself. For example, have I digested all of the food from yesterday, or do I have a lot of undigested meals on my body. Wow, so it makes sense to let my digestive system rest. That's a form of communication and intelligence. So how is it that a lot of us can't manage to, how much do I need to eat? Because I'm never one for depriving your brain or your body of nutrition. But what's the balance? Like, to ask your own self questions. By now, if you're on here on YouTube and you're able to pay for internet, you got enough information right now to be able to make certain decisions. Have I had too much? Do I need rest? Do I need more sleep? So that means now there's a guidance system. There's a literal guidance system. Does this make sense? I think I'm real practical and simple. So anyway, I want to encourage, maybe perhaps for a while, especially those folks in the cocoon, to take on for a while getting up early. Or even if it's simple, any access point, anything simple so it doesn't feel like one more thing to do before you get up in the morning, to just lay there and ask a question. And it may not come to you there. Allow your intelligence, allow the listening to your own communication system. You really don't have to get caught up in the labels or whatever you call it, to listen. I encourage you, if you're very stressed, to perhaps find a time during the day, maybe 5 minutes, lay on the floor and do nothing, and allow your mental activity, mind is not the brain, right? Mental activity is just a function of the brain, to lay on the floor. It may seem overly simple. Your ego may be saying, this is ridiculous, this is stupid, this is too simple, this don't mean anything. Lay on the floor and do nothing. Even if you don't have a yoga mat, just lay on the floor in rest pose and do nothing, and breathe and relax. Nothing. Maybe at some point in the day you may need to. Maybe you might need to close the office door and lay on the floor just for 5 minutes and do nothing. And see if that doesn't spark a curiosity and entice you to listen to another part of your psyche and your intelligence system, if you will, that is communicating all the time. If you need rest, if you need nutrition, is it time to do this? How am I feeling about how I'm relating right now? And I'm triggered. Am I able to pull back right now? Or is this the best use of my energy right now? Right? Otherwise, then you'll start to notice how much we are directed from voices or communications from the outside. I think this is practical. The body is always speaking, Marcy. So grateful for this. You're welcome. Why not make a positive use of the internet? Everybody else is doing the dark web and selling whatever they're selling. So we might as well get us a cup of tea in the cocoon. We're not using any sweetener right now. Why not? Why not? Everybody else is a professional. Why not? Why not claim what you need to claim on this plane? Listen. I invite y'all, as I say in the cocoon, everybody can grow something. And it's not, once you get in the process, I swear to you, so much clarity, which is worth its weight in gold. Literally, clarity will save you so much time, my folks out there, maybe struggling with your skin, your weight. Not that life is going to be perfect, but a quiet confidence that you can cultivate, that everybody has access to, just from getting quiet. When you want to talk about something that you can leverage, simple, quiet. I've chanted mantras, hands from the Bible, the Fatiha in Arabic, but the simplicity of quiet. No middleman, no middlewoman is required. And see what happens. What you got to lose? 3 minutes, 5 minutes to be inner directed. What that will do for your confidence and your decision making. This can save you so much time. This can save you so much time, and you can have access to having, and this is not corny, a more pleasant experience. It doesn't mean there's not triggers out there. That's not reality. It doesn't mean there's not other stuff going on. But to give yourself access to relaxation, to give yourself access to a real grounded type of confidence from listening to your own intelligence system, your own intelligent communication system. I'm telling you, clarity is worth its weight in gold. So I just want to send y'all some warm, positive vibrations. Feel free to replay this because we are decluttering. Part of the process in the cocoon is decluttering. So I invite you to create a circle of support for yourself, whatever that looks like, virtual people, whatever you can do, a circle of support for yourself. Who are the 5 people who you're around the most? Are you all interested in personal development, and do you have a safe space to look at your own mindless habits or vices? Are you looking at ways that you can multiply honorable economics? Are you into health, wellness, and fitness? Do you have an outlet for fun, for play? I know people call it exercise, and vigorous, joyous movement. I'm big on reframing the narrative in a way that these practices, that they're attractive to you. So working out may be a drag, but African dance, anytime I'm passing the drums in Prospect Park, I just want to jump out the car off my bicycle and just go to drum. See, reframing your narrative. You realize that we're allowing other people to control the narrative? We're allowing other people to control the narrative on our values. We're allowing other people to control the narrative on what's stimulating and when we should be stimulated for intimate relations with each other. We're allowing other folks to control the narrative out of avoidance of fear, but that's a whole nother story. Yes, there's an inner teacher. Greetings, Regina, Rose, Love One Way, Marcy, Robert. I'm sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. So y'all create a great day on purpose. Feel free to replay this. I will put good quality content. And this is something I did for many, many years when I realized I didn't have folks around me. I had a little portable DVD player. Back in the day, I had the Sony Walkman. And from a young girl, when I discovered the library and cassette tapes, for years, I have always had, before audible.com, somehow I figured out if I wanted access to information, it was in books, or I can tap in. I don't know how I found coaches of basketball players at the library, cassettes, and started playing them. I think before Tony Robbins and all this other stuff. Creating support for yourself is so important. So declutter, replay this, or if there are other things that you can replay. And my time, I got a lot of stuff to do with my time. I got to get out in the garden and water before the sun gets up. There's another channel. I haven't opened up the content. I'm called Coco Think Tank. I am a lover of learning, and I have zero shame. I will learn from anyone. There's a girl in China. She don't know she's one of my good friends. Her and her garden. I mean, this girl sews. She does crafts, all kinds of other stuff. I have no shame about learning. I love, just like I was really enamored and fascinated by how we went from young and fine to obese and depressed and eating ourselves to the point of deformity. I've always been fascinated by how we learn, right? So think about it. A lot of us are distracted and chasing tail sometimes because we don't want to deal with the fact that it's our responsibility to figure out how to learn. We're intimidated. Some of us are intimidated around math, science, when these are just skills that could help us understand. I'm always telling my son, we got to learn how to do percentages, or to learn how all of this education plays out in our life. So we are in a time where we can leverage this internet. If we are not leveraging, if we are not leveraging the internet to communicate and to come up with a think tank, this is giving us access to a think tank. Got Dr. Claude Anderson. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. Now there's Bitcoin. I was talking about Bitcoin years ago, and nobody else was really interested. It was a brother at the African Street Festival talking about Bitcoin. But I will go on and learn if it's real estate. So with discernment that comes from the quiet listening, so you're not getting scammed, right? And it's a process. So the relaxation can help us to slow down and respect process and not be so overly anxious that we get into trouble on this internet, because you don't know these people behind these screens, right? So anyway, y'all create a great day on purpose. Please, you're invited to replay this while you are decluttering and letting go of stuff. Look for some reasons to laugh and to get relaxed around fruits and vegetables. So please make yourself, avail yourself of Sister Butterfly and Sister Monkey Learn to Eat Better. I think they're 9 or 10 free little teeny tiny episodes on this channel. So it's really something when you can get playful and relaxed around certain things, like when it comes to a movement practice and eating healthy, things go into the brain easier when we're relaxed and playful. And I invite you also, those folks in the cocoon, to continue with mirror work of just staring at yourself. And I'm not going to demonize makeup and all that stuff. I can appreciate a full face. But I think there's something there. I found there's something very powerful with accepting your mortality, your stretch marks if you're a mom, the fact that your body is changing, if you're more full figured, even if you have a whole lot of adipose tissue. You might have 100 and something pounds of adipose tissue, but you know what? This is the body temple that you have right now. It's your house you're walking around, and you know what? It has transformative powers. It's a self cleansing and a self-healing mechanism. The cut is actually pretty amazing. Sometimes we do damage to it. That's just the fact. That's reality. But it will respond to movement. It responds to sweating. The hormone vitamin D, it responds to sunshine on the skin. So I'm about to get out there in the garden right now. It will respond to plant foods, right? It will respond. That's the beautiful. It will respond if you nourish it with those things. All right, y'all. Create a great day on purpose.